Hey guys, today we're going to discuss Healbot Classic and we're going to get straight into the configuration now. So when you download it, click on the options and you're presented with this menu here. So we're going to go through these options. First thing is the spells. You've got your button you want to click on the top, and what you do, you click on the little question mark and it basically selects the spell. So we want to change from left to middle now. And we want to select the spell we want for the middle button, we want to select the spell we want for the right button. So you've got your drop down areas here where you select your spell from, and you select the selector button on your right hand side, and that then binds that spell to that button. So when you click on the bar within the Healbot frame, it then casts that spell. So I'm just thinking about what I want here. So I want the middle button to use Renew Rank 9. That's fine for me. So I will select that. I also want to use Dispel Magic on Shift Click. You see I've got Shift Click selected there. I'm now going to change to the right, I think it's the middle button again. I've actually changed my mind. I want to use Abolish Disease instead on that, because I've got Shift Click. Abolish Disease for Control Click, I've got Dispel Magic on Shift Click. So I've got a button 4 on my mouse as well. What I want to do on button 4, I want to cast a lesser Renew, lower rank Renew, for somebody just to top them off if they're nearly like 80% health. So I bind that to a button instead of using a full Renew. So we now test our spells by clicking on our buttons over your frame, your bar in your raid frame there, and you can see that it sets the right spells for the right button that you press to. So once we're happy with that and we know that our basic spells work, we can now agree on the layout and the colorization of the frames if we're happy with the spells. So you might just want to play around with the spells just to make sure that they're okay and you are configuring what you need to use within a raid. So we will look at the skin layout of the configuration after we've finished configuring our spells and once we're happy with our spells. And this will determine the screen size that you have got on your monitor, whether it's a 4K monitor, whether it's only 1080p. So this will depend on your screen resolution. So click on skins, and here what I'm doing, I'm actually renaming frame number 2 to main tanks. So the way Healbot works, it uses multiple frames. Everything by default is in frame 1, but I'm going to have a different frame called main tanks. Now frame 1 is basically everybody in the raid, and here we're going to start setting the different settings. So we're basically going to set the alignment of the frame itself. So what is its source anchor? Where does it grow from? Does it, as people are populated in the raid, does it go top down from left to right, or does it go from bottom up, right to left? And we can see here group 1 is actually on the right, but I want it to read from left to the right, because raid group 3 is on the left and group 1 is on the right, and that really doesn't make sense. So I want to change this now. So what we do is we change the anchor. Now you've got a frame anchor here, and we've got a bars anchor too. So we change that, and you now see, now we've changed the bars anchor within the frame. It's actually growing out naturally from left to right, and that's what we want to do. So we apply this to all the frames, and then we make sure that the other frames, for example main tank, is also set the same. And we don't want to have it growing from right to left, because that's just what I prefer it like that. Some people might like it like that, but I don't. You can play around with the settings in here just to get a feel for what the frame configuration and the layout is going to be like, but I just prefer mine to go from left to right. See, you've got a horizontal configuration there, and some different configurations might work for different people. It just depends on what you've got. You might have dual monitor set up, so it could probably span one screen with a whole raid icons, but it just depends. So that's how it looks like for us, and I think we're relatively happy with that. So now we're going to go into the heal groups. So you can bind different groups into different frames. So by default, most things are in frame 1. What I'm going to do, I'm going to save this skin and call it raid healing, and I'm going to save this from the standard skin, so I've got something to work with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign different things into different groups. In particular, I want the main tanks in a separate frame. I want the main tanks on the left hand side, and I can move that separately. So let's do that. Let's put the main tanks in the main tanks frame we created earlier, and you can see now the main tanks have now appeared on the right hand side because we haven't set the alignment for that frame yet. Now we go down and we untick and we tick what we want included in the frames. I don't want like a separate healer group in frame 1. I do want to show pets as well, because that is useful sometimes. Now this is what we've got now. We've got the main tanks on the right, and I want to move that over to the left hand side. And that I do that because it's easier for me to heal when I'm healing in a raid. So we want to basically unlock this, and we want to drag it. We want to align it next to the main frame there. By default, it will automatically lock in place, and as you move frame 1 around, it will move the main tanks around too. Now we're happy with this group configuration. We can move on to the layout of the frame, the text, the colours, the bars, etc. So we're looking at the headers now. This is the header of the frame. So how the group text is displayed. So there's the bar colour and there's the text colour here. And remember, this is just the header. It's not the bar colour of the actual bar. It's the bar colour of the header. Each header has a bar colour behind it. As you can see, it's like very dark, very transparent green. Every now and again, as you can see now, I'm having to reload the UI because sometimes Healbot, when you're making so many different changes to it, doesn't update the screen in time. So just click on reload UI at the bottom, and that just refreshes that. So now we go back to configuring the headers, and set the text here. So you can set the height of the text, you can set the font, you can set the width of the text. You can do this both on the header and the bar itself, but we're just concentrating on the header for the moment. I'm just turning the raid profile back on so we can see what it looks like, and this will basically affect the text that says main tanks group 1, raid group 5, etc, etc. So once we're happy with the header, the text color, the height, the layout, the texture background, the font size, the offset, and if you want an outline at the bottom there, have a play around with this. Once you're happy with it, just save it, and you can always kind of move things around if you want to. So you've got to configure all these options. So you need to understand that there's a header text setting. You need to understand that there's a bar text setting. There's also a health text setting. So we'll go through these anyway. Okay, the bar configuration. So we click on general. We can scroll through the textures at the top where we've got the texture numbers. So click on the general button at the top. As you can see, we've got the general colors, sort, visibility, aggro, auxiliary. But on the general tab here, we're just basically going through the textures to see what we like. I personally prefer the default, the smooth texture, I think it is. You can actually import different textures as well, but I just basically keep it as the default one, which I think it's smooth. Or is it that one? I can't remember. Once you're happy with that, we can then configure the number of groups per column, and you can see if we add 3 groups per column, it actually takes up more vertical space, so we want to keep that to 2. We can set the height of the bars, which is what I'm doing at the moment, and once we're happy with the height, we can apply that to the tank frame. You see the tank frame gets updated. We can also control the width of the bar. So we modify the width of the bar, and again we apply that to the tank frame, and the tank frame then gets set to the same size as raid 1. Frame 1. Sorry. And once we're happy with that layout, and that is much better for me now, we can set the spaces in between each raid bar. So we remove the space, so the row space and the column space we set to 0. Apply that to all frames, and we've got a nice compact layout now, and that's looking pretty good. So we need to sort the colours out now. Now by default it's using the standard colour, which is the health colour. Now I want to change frame 1 to use a specific colour, and I want it to the colour of the class, so we select class. Once we are happy with the frame 1 class, we just apply the same settings to the main tanks class, and that you'll notice that the text is so the colours are all sorted now, and we can work with that. We've got different options there. The way that if you click on sort, the way that the group is sorted. I like to sort it by group. Some people like to sort it by class or by alphabetic numbering, but alphabetic letters. But I just sort it by the group there, so that's fine with me. We've got aggro settings, we've got auxiliary settings there, which I don't really modify, I just keep that as default. So now we're setting the text colours. The colours at the moment correspond with the class colour, and I want to change this to a specific colour. So click on custom, select a preset colour, and then it changes. In this case I've selected white, and there you go, you see the text is all white. Now it does have like a little shadow on the text as well to differentiate from the background colour if it's like a priest, if it's white, so you can actually read that quite well. If you're happy with that, you can change the opacity of it here. You can change different tags as well in the middle, so if somebody's disconnected it appears on the screen. You can change the font of the text, which is what I'm changing at the moment. You can change the font size. You can change the horizontal and the vertical alignment. But one thing to consider is that you need to make sure that the name and the bar size and the font size, the font type can fit on the screen for people with long names. Sometimes you get people grow off the end of one bar and it goes on to the next bar if their name is really long. So just consider the font type and the font size and whether it's readable. If that's important to you, you might not want to have a font on there at all. It just depends. For me, I like to have the font a specific size. You can set shadows at the bottom, outlines at the bottom. Here, if you want to move it to the left or the right, up and down, you can just set the offset here, so that moves it up and down. You might want to have the health text at the bottom, which we can configure to display like a larger font or a more bolder font, and that will push the size available down for the actual name. So we just need to make sure we're happy with the layout of that. So move it, change the font, set the outline, change the vertical, the horizontal offset, change the opacity if you want to change the opacity. Click on the health button as well if you want to change text for the health. I've left mine as default because I'm quite happy with that. It's a nice simple font to read. I know everybody's got 10k health at the moment. It's in white. It's fine for what I need. And once you're happy with that, we can just apply that to the current frame, and we can change that to apply to the main tank frame as well. And then that works. So we move on to just some of the other settings. Okay, icons. Little icons appear depending on what buffs and what heal over time, displayed on each raid member. So you can basically control that if you just click on icons. I just keep mine by like the default settings because that's fine with me. You can see like a little icon appear on each character. Debuffs. You can monitor for debuffs in the raid. So if somebody's got magic or a disease or poison, it'll actually change the colour of the person in the raid, and you can basically set spells to remove these in the raid. You've got the priorities at the bottom, you've got the colours at the bottom. You can change the colours if you want, but basically what will happen is somebody's got disease, that'll have a higher priority than magic. So if magic displays first, the person will turn blue. If then they get a disease, they'll turn purple because disease takes priority. So just configure your debuff settings there. All the other settings I keep as default. Buffs, so you can monitor for buffs in the raid, which is good because you can see when everybody hasn't got a buff. However, you might want to turn this off, and you can monitor but just not assign a spell. So somebody's got a debuff and you've just got mana, and you're just about to start a fight, you notice somebody hasn't got a buff, you click on it, it basically like allocates Prayer of Fortitude in this case, so you might just want to turn that off. All the other settings are leave as default. You've got tips, you can use your mouse wheel if you want. Obviously the test is what we've been using. But basically what I'm going to do now is just finalise my settings, make sure I'm happy with everything. Here you can import things, by the way. You can import skins, you can import custom debuffs, custom buffs, import spells. You can get that from the Healbot website. There's lots of information on the web on how to do that anyway. So we're happy with our heal groups now. We're just reviewing all these settings. What else? Oh yeah, the pet bar. I need to configure the pet bar to make sure it's the same as everything else. You can notify people as well if you're casting a spell. So we just basically configure that. You can notify the raid or your party, or just show yourself. Shows what spell you're casting. But I'm only notifying when my mana is low in the raid and when I'm only resurrecting. Here we can configure your general settings of your skin again. You might want to configure the refresh rate at the bottom here. There's an option there which says use fluid bars. That gradually increases or decreases when a raid member is being hit or being healed. It's like a smoother effect. I don't like it because it takes longer to render in the bar, especially on a tank. If a tank is getting hit for like 50% of his health, it takes a little bit of a while for that fluid bar to go down and go up when he's healed. So I prefer like an instant thing. So that's why I set that. So we just finalise some of these settings. I forgot to bind shield to a button. Test your settings out. So my shield works. And you notice there that my raid frame opacity is not the best really. I can't actually see my bar when I'm out of combat. So we're going to set that now. So you'll see that I'm going into the frame section here. I'm going to the colours section. At the bottom you've got disabled. So you set the disabled opacity so it's a little bit more clear, and you can see there's a bit more white on me now. So that's basically how you configure Healbot. Test all your settings out, make sure you're happy, click on the options, make sure that everything works for you, and good luck healing and enjoy the raiding.